Uh, Before I go on with my presentation, I know Hussein Mousafian for a long time, and I read his articles, and we met in many places and discussed and argued about many things. So today I thought he is not objective at all in reading the situation and putting the responsibility of the desired situation in the Arab world on Saudi Arabia and the desire of Saudi Arabia to be the leader of the region. Really, it is, I don't know if it's a diplomatic word, but it's baseless. All the points you raised in your presentation, though I agree with you with your conclusion. The need of more dialogue, more to go with this set of principles you have stated. And I am one of the people who were promoting it for a long time. But really, your reading, it shows that you are not willing to go to that direction, to go to the dialogue. Because if you're reading wrong of the aspiration and the interest of your neighbor and the other countries, that means something wrong to start even to talk or dialogue about this solution for the problems of the region. This is just before I start my presentation. Though my presentation might be, it's more scholarly on Saudi conduct, Saudi purpose in the region. It would answer you. What is the Saudi national interest in the region? Okay, first let me thank and extend my thanks and gratitude to His Excellency the Director of the Center. And I thank the Institute also for giving this opportunity to be with such distinguished group. Within the context of the timely theme of this conference, changing security paradigm in West Asia, regional and international responses, I have been asked to speak on Saudi Arabia and the region, a topic that is broad and important, considering the centrality of Saudi Arabia and the region and its strategic importance regionally and internationally. However, nowadays, talking about strategic direction of any country in West Asia or in the larger Middle East, where every crisis begets another crisis and where every issue is linked to another issue, is not an easy task. Uncertainty is the order of the day in the region and the world. And as a result, confusion is widespread in all directions with all states in the whole region. The speed and nature of regional and international events of the last 7 years are changing the nature and dynamics of internal, regional, and international politics of the region. While it's still early to determine the end result of this unfolding process of great transformation, assessing its impact on the security and stability of Saudi Arabia or on the regional security and stability is a real challenge. It's a fact that such a transformation has created a new complicated security environment and posed new challenges for all countries. But also it provides, I hope, opportunities to form new policies toward establishing a new sustainable and stable regional order. Saudi Arabia is central in moving to such desired order. Saudi foreign policy motives are becoming a hot subject lately and matter of analysis, commentaries, speculation, and propaganda. Due to its new proactivity in the region, on the regional stage, all kinds of contradictory explanation were unleashed, like the things Ambassador Mousafian has mentioned, were unleashed to interpret the logic of this policy. Amidst this impressionist analysis that ignores the guiding rationale behind such conduct, misperceptions are widely disseminated, contributing to misunderstanding the real motive of Saudi regional conduct. This is exactly what I will talk about. In the world of nation-state, survivability of the state is the basic driving motive of its conduct. Saudi Arabia is not exceptional in this respect. Thus, preserving internal and regional security and stability are the most important determinants of its behavior. Saudi Arabia is a status quo country by its nature, and therefore any radical change that threatens the existing internal and regional order are not easily accepted. From the early days of its formation as a well-defined nation state, its foreign policy purpose was set before everything else to preserve its security and stability and to maintain its political order. With the newly established nation state in the Arab world, whose national purposes were the same, a regional order corresponding to their common bond, Arabism, was crystallized in 1945 by the establishment of the League of the Arab States, and later by its specialized agencies. This regional order at the time reflected a desire by these states more than anything else to promote and strengthen the status quo that recognized the legitimacy of the nation-state system. However, with all the chronic failures in facing regional challenge and the threats, this order was the means for maintaining the status quo in the Arab world. Since the Middle East region is not a sole Arab region, a regional balance of power was preserved by the dominant international status quo power, first under Pax Britannica and later under Pax Americana. Preserving such a regional order was imperative in Saudi foreign policy for preserving regional peace and security, and therefore its own peace and security. When this system during the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s of last century was threatened by transnational ideologies or revisionist trends, Saudi Arabia was always an engine and center of diplomatic dynamism. Saudi Arabia was able, by mobilizing its material resources, political capital, soft power, and its international alliances, to maintain the regional status quo, and therefore preserved its own security and stability. It confronted Nasser in the late 50s and the 60s of the last century when he posed a threat to the regional security and stability and to its own survivability. It confronted communists in the region, supported Iraq in the Iran-Iraq war when it was clear that the Iranians were up to changing the balance of power in the region, and therefore the regional order. Saudi Arabia also stood fast against Saddam invasion of Kuwait. However, as much as Saudi Arabia looks with suspicion to any radical change that may change the status quo, historical experience shows that when these kind of a change take place and it becomes clear that they do not pose a direct threat to regional stability and its own security and stability, the country adjusts itself to the reality and tries to influence events in order to preserve the status quo. This, I think, explains the position toward the Ba'athist ideology and having a friendly relation with both Syria and Iraq under Ba'ath regimes as long as they minded their own affairs. It also explains its recognition of many revolutions. Nasser revolution in Egypt, 52, the same can be said about recognizing the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Furthermore, this also explains the transformation in the Saudi position toward change that took place during the Arab Spring in Tunis, Egypt, Yemen, Syria, and Libya. It moved from suspicion to acceptance. However, when it became clear that in Egypt the Akhwan or Muslim Brotherhood may at the end hijack the Egyptian state for the interests of their transnational ideology, Saudi Arabia supported the action taken to prevent such possibility. In Yemen and Bahrain, Saudi Arabia had involved itself directly to influence the outcome. In Yemen, as an example, Saudi Arabia, since its inception saw the security and the stability of Yemen as part of its own security and stability, and has always accepted whoever come to power as long as the regime was friendly to Saudi Arabia and capable of preserving the internal balance within Yemen itself. With the taking of power in Yemen by the Houthis, who were not friendly at all to Saudi Arabia and ideologically connected with revolutionary Iran that works for changing the regional status quo, and who did not preserve the internal balance of power in Yemen, and therefore threatening the internal peace of Yemen, Saudi Arabia had to intervene militarily to prevent such militia from succeeding and to bring order to Yemen polity in accordance to what Yemenis has chosen for themselves and their national dialogue. So in this, Mr. Mosafyan, it's not a Saudi-Yemeni war. It's a war in a certain group tries to take or to hijack the Yemeni state. The same thing could be said about Saudi position towards Syria. Syria is very important and central in Saudi political thought due to its centrality in any regional balance of power. Therefore, supporting the change in Syria and influencing such change is a matter of strategic importance to guarantee the sustainability of the Syrian state and to maintain its centrality in the Arab world. Within we can also understand Saudi reaction to Iranian meddling in the Arab affairs. In short, it is fair to say that Saudi Arabia foreign policy succeeded in preserving the regional status quo with all its flaws, and therefore preserved its own security and stability. In fact, it is the only country in the region that enjoyed almost 8 decades of internal stability and security within its own border. The 2003 invasion of Iraq, the American failure in leaving behind a sustainable Iraqi national regime, and the aftermath of the Arab uprising is an indication of the crumbling status quo regional order. Therefore, we are witnessing nation-states on the verge of collapse by civil wars, the rise of influential non-state actors, foreign interference in internal affairs by aggressive states like Iran, or let's say revisionist state like Iran, lack of international leadership, and continued failure in resolving the protracted Arab-Israeli conflicts. Such challenges are insurmountable for any country alone. Saudi Arabia, faced with such regional challenge that threatens its own security and stability, and had to act to bring collapsing regional order to order. And therefore, Saudi Arabian new dynamism, it is not for hegemony or dominance. It is a natural response to immense challenge facing its region. With this dynamism, Saudi Arabia needs, like other countries, to envision an alternative to the old status quo. Thinking of this alternative is impossible before knowing where the dust will settle in the region. However, immunizing its own peace and security during this troubled time is the priority in its national agenda. Thank you.